Hey folks, this is going to be a very special video all about the restoration of a very important drum to me. This is what's called the Slingerland 140 model. There's a Slingerland badge. Now, this is a colossal sleeper. In the drumming community, sleepers are known as drums that actually perform unbelievably well recording live, but kind of go under the radar, and it's still kind of a snare that's under the radar, if you can believe that, after more than, let's see, 67, wow, almost more than 50 years, right? More than 50 years. This drum is still under the radar. This is an amazing drum. Let's get to it. It's an aluminum shell. It's ribbed. You can hear my fingernail working. You see the rib, right? A ribbed aluminum shell. It's not seamless. There's a spot where the shell is joined together. Usually it's right under a lug, which I can't even find quickly. Here it is. You can see there's the line right there, and there's the other one. So you can see it's joined. It doesn't overlap, but it's joined together and concealed underneath one of these classic Slingerland lugs. The chrome of the Slingerland lugs has really kept its quality, very little pitting. However, this drum, I just got done cleaning it up and restoring it. It took me 2 days. There's some interesting things I discovered about this drum. Took me 2 days because I had, since the last time I used it, I had put it away. I moved a few times. Took a trip back to the States, and for a sabbatical. Came back, moved again, and it was just kind of pushed around almost all my other snares, and it seriously had a lot of rust and all over the rims, notably on the inside, not so much on the outside. You can see if I can get a good shot of it for you. You can see kind of the black. There's a good shot. I'm sorry, right here. You see the black. Okay, that's no longer rust. See that? Pretty much all the way around. It was really bad. It was really bad. And so WD-40, right? That didn't really work initially. I thought it was just caked on gunk, you know. So I tried a heat gun. That didn't work. Went online, discovered that, well, actually, the pitting on the chrome on the inside of these rims was rust, a ton of rust. And I eventually used WD-40 and a wire brush on a drill and just took it down. The wire brush didn't affect the chrome inside, which is really cool. It was a brass wire brush. And then just went at it for hours and hours with steel wool, and cleaned up the remaining parts. The wire brush, though, helped out a lot. So it got down to this level where the black is the chrome that's come off, and you're seeing the stain, I assume, you know, of what used to be the rust. Now, another thing happened. When I took this apart, there was a lot of that same kind of stuff around the shell, the bearing edge. And that's where I used the heat gun. I thought it was just a lot of gunk, you know, on the shell. Residue from cleaning and all kinds of stuff, and humidity maybe. But it's aluminum, so I didn't kind of understand what it was. It looked like, if you can imagine, like extreme calcium deposits, you know? It looked like that. So I looked it up and I learned that aluminum can oxidize. And if this happens to you guys, this is going to be a lifesaver. It can oxidize. And it turns into what appears to be like a very dense residue of calcium deposits. It's not calcium, but so you can't actually use a heat gun on that. The heat gun will not destroy or discolor the aluminum. Aluminum has a very high threshold. Unlike steel, if you use a heat gun on steel, it will discolor. It turns kind of like that rainbowy kind of look. So I tried that, didn't work. Actually, it turns out, fortunately, I didn't do that too long because the oxidation, excuse me, of the aluminum with the heat gun will actually create that oxidation even harder. So I saw it wasn't working, stopped that, and was like, well, this isn't just gunk and stuff. It's not melting off. So what is this? And it is aluminum oxidation. And how did I get that off? Let me recall. I didn't use the wire brush. I didn't want to have that dig into the aluminum. I used steel wool, very fine steel wool. 2 grades, I forget the grades, but one was rougher than the other, and literally just shaved it down like a madman. Now, when you have aluminum oxidation, WD-40 is not going to work. What you want to do is get yourself white vinegar and a toothbrush. And the white vinegar reacts, the acidity in white vinegar reacts with the oxidation and helps you lift it off. And since it wasn't you know, in the middle of the shell, and you go with the lines, the ribbed lines of the shell, there's virtually no way to see that I used steel wool to take them off. Even when you take off the head, you'll see same kind of thing where the aluminum appears to be stained, you know, from the oxidation, but that's it. So I got it back down to its original bearing edge and cleaned it up. Not shiny, buffing it out, you know, but enough. And it's now in really working order. Just goes to show that, you know, you see a lot of people out there with drums, and they're cleaning their drums, and they put all this super duper stuff on it, and brand new heads and all that stuff, and brand new snares, and you know, it does add a little bit. It's nice. It's very inspiring to see it crystal clean, you know. But if it's a good drum, you don't need a lot of that new stuff to get it back to the level that it's dreaming to be. You can see this head is not flawless back here. There's little nicks and bumps. I can take that out with a hairdryer. And I did put on a brand new Remo Ambassador. Funny, says Ludwig on it. Which brings me to my next subject. Before that, actually, the throw-off is kind of just magical because there's no springs. It's hard, heavy-duty steel, and it works perfectly. It's got a nice click, you know, we see a lot of these throw-offs that have all these kind of things inside them, this one, like I said, is like more than 50 years old. I even left on the little rubber gasket there that creates kind of some pressure to keep the screw from unscrewing itself. That eventually is going to be gone. I'm going to have to take that and replace that somehow, but maybe even put a spring there. But it's just flawless, and it hasn't ever caused me any problem. And actually, this one has a really nice click to it. The hoops, before I get to why the Ludwig thing is kind of interesting, the hoops on these drums, so this is a Slingerland 140 model, are called stick savers. So it's not triple flanged where the hoop comes up, over, up, and then back out in this way towards you. It comes up, and instead of going back out, it rolls over top of the head. So I don't know if you can, yeah, you can kind of see it right there. See how it's rolling over top on both sides. Both sides. Rolls over. And this is a major plus for this snare drum. When you have that stick saver approach that Slingerland, I think they developed, came out with, what it does is, when you hit the drum, on a normal triple flanged hoop, the sound, the ring that appears around the edge doesn't encounter any rim on a triple flanged hoop, and it comes up and out of the drum. Excuse me. With a stick saver rim, that ring hits the hoop and comes back into the center of the drum, let's say, you know. So this really adds a lot of woodiness to the drum. It really controls that ring that you get with triple flanged hoops. This is a gigantic plus with this drum. So here's the story. And if you're here and you want to hear this, I'm going to put in at the end of this a sound bite of what this drum really does. But here's the story. Hold on, I'm going to get some coffee in my throat. It's winter time. We got the post-Christmas blues, right? Drink up if you got it. Coffee, black. This story is kind of colossal. And it's warming my heart just to think of it. I'm just hugging it, you know. So, the way this works. I was a teenager, driving in my Mustang, going to a jazz gig down at the local coffee shop called Gargoyles Coffee Shop. And I just recently purchased this drum. Actually, my parents, they found it at a yard sale. They brought it home and like, Jonathan, do you like this? Would you like this? And I was just like, you know, crazy about it. 13, no, not 13 because I was driving, so I must have been 16 or 17, 16. So it originally came in this unbelievable wooden box covered in vinyl, leather style leather coating, and inside the box was this wonderful, like lush velvet, purple velvet everywhere, coating the box inside everywhere. And there was also another compartment. You lifted it up and you put your books and your snare stand, maybe a thin one, and some sticks. So it came in that box. I have since then lost that box, unfortunately. I don't know where, but anyway. So stupid. I load up the Mustang and I have this, we called it the coffin. I had a lot of hardware in this coffin size hard case. Put the box on the coffin. It was hot out in the summertime, driving down the road, red light, I stop. The snare drum in the box slides down the coffin. I'm watching this thing, slides down the coffin and out the window at the red light. I was just, and as like a, crazy 16, 17-year-old, jumped out of the car, didn't think twice about cars and stuff, stupid, and grabbed this box, put it back in the car, closed the window, I guess, and took off. Scared the bejesus out of me. But that's how this snare started with me before the gig. Never leave your windows open. Anyway, so gig goes fine. Bring it back home. A lot of years go by. Go to Berkeley, take it with me, using it, sounds great, years go by. Come to Paris, years go by, I've changed my drum preference, and I'm using, at that time, it was the Omar Hakim snare, the mahogany one, 13-inch, loved that snare. I got rid of it for I don't know what reason. But in Paris, probably because I needed the money. Years go by again, and I land a gig in a place called the Sherwood. And I don't even know if it's still there. It's in the district where the opera is in Paris. Really posh up place, Hold on a second. And so I land this gig, and with my really good friend, Harry. And it's at the Sherwood. Now this is right next to a very famous, literally right next to the famous bar called Harry's Bar, Harry's Club, in Paris. Now, that gig is in it was upstairs in a very small space. And I really needed a drum that wasn't going to explode those walls. We oftentimes are in little spaces like that, cafes and bars and things. So I needed a drum that wasn't going to explode everything. So I pulled this one out. And because it's aluminum, it doesn't have that powerhouse sound that you get from a steel drum or a Vistalite, for example. Wood drums can also have a lot of ring as well. So I didn't want that ring, and I didn't want that powerhouse thing. It was just too small. So I pulled this one out. It has a very controlled ring, and you can play it very softly, and it sounds great. And you can go at it, and it sounds great too. That gig went on for about 2, maybe even 3 years. It was crazy. I think for sure 2 years, maybe even 3. we had a non-stop residence in this place every Saturday night. I don't know how I did it. I was young. Every Saturday night from 10, the gig started at 10 and went until 4 in the morning, playing pop stuff, cover band stuff, some jazz stuff, but a lot of cover band stuff. And man, it was a colossal gig. It was the gig that kind of put me in place in Paris. You know, I don't want to say we're dreaming of that to happen, but we definitely, you know, when we're aspiring to be in the community, oftentimes you'll hear people say, you know, it was that gig, it was that session, it was that recording that did it for me. And that gig is the one that did it for me. Playing at the Sherwood, it just kind of put me on the map. With the musicians I was playing with, I was learning who they were. It was the first time I ever played with them. And we had a lot of people come over. It was right around the corner from the Olympia. And I remember even one time, I mean, we had tons of people come over from after the show at the Olympia. They would come over and hang out on that street, and a lot of times come into the Sherwood. And I remember even one time, it was hilarious. One time, Sting was playing at Olympia, and so Vinny's there, and it must have been about 2 o'clock in the morning, and Vinny's roadie, drum tech, comes in, and I'm kind of like starting to sweat. And what are we playing while he's walking in? None other than It's Probably Me by Sting, right? And so I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, you know, this is going to be crazy. I hope he doesn't leave. I hope we're doing this well, you know. And we were. That gig had already been established between the band, and we had a colossal pocket. It was just a phenomenal gig. 6 hours, I think, right? 10 to 4. And just a wonderful gig. And this snare drum made all that happen for me. This snare drum was able to hang in the light jazz stuff we were playing, and then all of that heavy rock and pop stuff, from songs like Kiss to It's Probably Me, to a ton of Beatles tunes, Eagles tunes, Daft Punk tunes, ZZ Top tunes. What else were we playing at that time? Rolling Stones, Stevie Wonder. Wow, I mean, the repertoire was amazing, having to play for so long. And this drum hung in there. And there were literally moments when it was like a stadium where it's just, the singer just shuts everybody up and the crowd is singing while I'm just laying down a 2/4 pocket, you know, like a stadium. And this drum totally just, I think, it turned a lot of heads. Man, I loved it too, because it's aluminum, it's light. So I was, you know, when you have a brass drum, which I love brass drums, if you know this channel, they're heavy drums and you carry them around and you start to feel it. Well, doing it for 2 to 3 years, every Saturday, I was enjoying the fact that it was a light drum. But needless to say, this drum kept all that stuff in place. Rolling Stones, I don't know if I said that, Bob Dylan, other songs will come back to me as I talk about this. But like I said, this drum and that gig did something for me here. Put me in place somehow, and I'm very grateful for it. But isn't it funny how the lineage of stuff, you know, way back when I was, a teenager, not knowing what this drum would be for me later on, that's what our gear does to us. And I know some of you listening to me are smiling right now, probably looking at the instrument that has done the same thing for you. You know, if I was at that gig and I didn't use the right snare drum, I probably would not have either kept the gig or it just wouldn't have been as successful. Because, you know, we underestimate snare drums in the gig. They are crucial. If that snare drum sound is not playing properly in all of the songs you're playing, if the harmonies and the crack and the rim clicks, Yellow Moon's another one, unbelievable song. If they're not working properly, the song's just not going to help capture that magic that everybody's hoping for when you start the song off. The kit, if you can imagine, was a rhythm traveler. You can imagine, that's how small the area, the space I had. But modified most of the work on that kind of, on those kind of songs is bass drum and snare drum. So the bass drum obviously wasn't that great, but it was more like seeing it as it wasn't so profound, so deep. It was easy to get a very good funky thump sound from that small little bass drum. And but to tie it all together, you definitely need a very good snare sound. So this is it. This is the one that did it for me. And I'm during the holidays, I was like, you know what, I got to clean this up. I can see that rust. I was from the corner of my eye, I was like, this is just, you know, I can't let that drum go. It means so much to me. So I spent, like I said, 2 days and cleaned this thing up. And I tuned it pretty much like I tune a lot of my drums, unless I'm going for something really particular where I just tune it up to get the top head and the bottom head. The bottom head not tabletop. A lot of people do that. I pretty much just tune it up to its lowest note. So you keep tuning until the wrinkles go away. And then from there, that's a good starting point. And if you need to, if your ear hears it a little low or a little high, you make some adjustments. But that tends to be kind of a wonderful spot for me. So that's how I tune this one up. It does have a muffler inside, which is really cool. So you can get, even if that ring is a little too much, or if you want to get even more late 70s, 80s funk, dry, you can use that muffler and get it even more dry. So that's what this snare drum is. Slingerland Model 140. I highly, highly recommend checking it out. This is a wonderful snare for pop. It's a wonderful snare for funk, rock, 70s music, 60s music, jazz. It's a wonderful snare. It's professional series student model of the time. It came out, I think, in 1967. This snare is the response that Slingerland had to the Acrolite. I got one down here too. The Acrolite. Pause. Let me show you. So here is your famous Acrolite snare, right? There it is. I put a dot, a coated dot, a little too powerful. It's an Emperor coated dot on this drum. I should take this head off and put just a regular ambassador. It would be way better. Now, this drum came out in 1963, 62, 63, whatever it takes. This was kind of immediately a success. It was also a student model, snare drum, aluminum, does not have the triple flanged hoops, regular hoops. The throw off is, as always, actually a little better than your rinky-dink Ludwig throw-offs. They tend to be very rinky-dink kind of thing, you know. The click is not as nice as the Slingerland. Just kind of slides in. It still is nice though. The funny thing is, after I did that gig at the Sherwood, for so long I was always dreaming of getting the Acrolite. I was like, in my mind, I was saying, man, you know, it's a shame I don't have that Acrolite, because that's the drum I need for this gig. Even though the gig was burning, it was great. So when I had done my sabbatical, same thing. My parents said, you know what? My dad was like, you know, Jonathan, there was a snare drum at the local thrift store. I think you might be interested. It was Ludwig. He knows drums now. It's Ludwig, and it had that kind of a funky blue-green badge, and my eyes was like, oh, you know. And so I went and picked it up for $60. It's crazy. You can still find these Acrolites in thrift stores for nothing, because people assume that, you know, it's a student model. It's not flashy. It looks kind of cool, but it's not, doesn't have any gold trim, you know. So I was in heaven, and turns out when I got back, I lost a gig over an argument about a girl, which happens to a lot of people. I'm sure some of you are smiling at me as I say that. Anyway, so lost the gig, put this one on the shelf, and went on with my life. All right. Now, this Ludwig, okay, Acrolite, professional student model, this is the drum that was used for a lot of, I imagine, Motown, a lot of songs. It's one of the most recorded drums in history. The Superphonic is the other one. And then John Bonham used the chrome, Superphonic chrome over aluminum. That's what's mentioned online, but I also remember him saying he liked the steel version. So it's kind of a debate there, but in a lot of drummers' minds, he was using the deeper model Superphonic. Anyway, so that his name is attached to this drum in some ways. But this drum comes out in 1963, I believe, and kind of takes over the market, explodes in recording. This is also your Steve Gadd sound. I don't know if he was using this one, but it definitely is that Steve Gadd thing. And a lot of funk, a lot of pop, funk of the 80s, because it being aluminum without a chrome coating, it doesn't have a ring that you get with chrome coating or on a steel drum or brass drum. So people like Clyde Stubblefield or that kind of funk, you hear them using a snare drum that is a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more ringy and explosive, and that tends to be either something chrome plated or some it tends to be a COB, right? Chrome over brass, or a COA, chrome over aluminum. It tends to be something like that, which is the Superphonic. One of them, anyway. This one will do that for you. It does have a nice ring, obviously. It was used 1,000 times. Like I said, it's one of the most recorded drums in history. But, you know, it's funny. Slingerland then, with this happening in the industry in the 60s and the Motown explosion, Slingerland comes out with the Model 140. That's how this worked. Slingerland came out with this one as a response to the Acrolite. To cut costs, they didn't create the shell in a seamless manner like it is on the Acrolite. That is a seamless shell. They joined the shell together. The ribs that you see on the shell are intended to control even more any potential ring that happens. So the ribs interfere with the vibration going up and down the shell, much like lathing does in a cymbal. So every single time that frequency goes down the shell, it hits a rib and gets and it loses its ring, and then it keeps going and loses its ring. So it's a very controllable drum, this one, even more so, I think, than the Acrolite. And if you were to do a blind test for me, yes, maybe I'm biased because of my experience with this drum, but I like this one more than the Acrolite. The Acrolite, for me, I've noticed this with cymbals and with drums. When things are too dry, it just kind of annoys me, actually. Not to my ear, but when you play it. When you're playing dry stuff, you go for a sound and you want a return. You want even a little bit of some saturation, some explosions, some distortion, something. And when it's too dry, you never get that. And so you just find yourself going at it. And for me, they wear me out in a sense, because I'm going for this sound and I never get that thing happening with dry cymbals, dry drums, dry snare drums, dry bass drums. I can't stand them, actually, to play them. To listen to them, that's the paradox, because to listen to them, sure, I love it. But that's one of the reasons why I actually like the Slingerland more than the Ludwig Acrolite. It's extremely dry. It's dry, but with this ring, because they don't have, with a little extra ring, they don't have the stick saver hoops like the Slingerland does. So the Slingerland is also very dry, and they cut costs. They use the ribbing on the shell, and because it's not seamless, the ring doesn't happen as much. So it is very dry. They did that to cut costs. So it's considerably cheaper to get one than an Acrolite. The manufacturing process is more involved on the shell with the Acrolite than this one is. But you still get heavy gauge lugs, muffler, and the stick savers. And the size is identical to the Acrolite, 14 by 5, if I recall. It's just a colossal snare drum without being unbelievably dry. Now, I can make it dry if I want to, and I guess that's kind of the best of both worlds. I can add the muffler right here. I can add it and make it dry if I want to. But if I don't want that, the drum, to me, breathes a little more. And I can get that kind of Motown explosion with this drum. Not the Motown explosion or the funk thing you get with James Brown in the later 60s, 70s. That's another drum, and I will be posting another video about that. This one, the explosion I'm talking about, is more in the early 60s to mid 60s Motown sound. Funk has not yet taken hold, but you get this wonderful explosion, I guess, controlled saturation with this drum. The rim clicks, I can't even, they are unbelievable. The Stick Sabers make the rim click sound literally amazing. Some of the best I've ever heard. So obviously this drum then works really well with 60s, pre-60s, 50s, 40s, all of that music as well. Rock and roll. We were also doing rock and roll in that gig too. So this is a giant to me, this drum. And not very flashy. Does look classy. I cleaned it up. I could do a little bit more. It just kind of hangs in under the radar, and why it's called a sleeper drum. So now I'm going to jump to a sound test of this drum. And before I go into this, I want to mention one more thing. Some people don't know how to figure out whether chrome over aluminum is steel or brass or whatever. And how do you do that without scratching the top or seeing a B underneath, inside? Drummer's trick. Put a magnet to the shell. When you put a magnet to the shell, if the magnet sticks, it's steel. If it doesn't, it's aluminum or brass. How do you tell the difference between aluminum or brass? Aluminum is very light. Aluminum shells, you think you can feel like you can throw them around. Brass drums are very heavy. That's the big indicator. You can tell if it's chrome over brass or not. So anyway, I'm now going to do a soundbite for you of this drum. Heads, it's just a remote ambassador. Tensions, like I said, tuning is pretty much old school. We all have our different ways of miking stuff up. You can see one over top of me. I'm doing this with 5 mics, but miking and mixing and the mics you use and the effects, it's very hard to say. I might tell you what I'm using, but it really doesn't help you recapture that sound. You just got to work it out yourself, find out what's best, especially for your room, where you're at. You might find that one mic placement, one microphone, one effect sounds better than another in one room versus another, So I'm not going to get into the specs of all that stuff. So give me a second and I'll get this up and give you a peek to what this drum really sounds like. One moment here, pause. It's a lot of fun to play. All right, let me just do something that's not so explosive. Let's do some military marches. Very controlled. It's a very controlled, fat, thick sound. Screaming Motown, early Motown. Though this snare, right, it came out late Motown. Super fat sounds. Check out the rim clicks. It's like immediately, put your hand in the center. Right? It just sounds phenomenal. And great old school fat, thick sound. And you get this sound, let's be real again, acrylites now, unless you find them at a thrift store, are very, very expensive. This is your sleeper snare. If you want that fat sound, this snare, hands down, one of the best. And personally, I like it more than the acrylite. And you could hear that it's exploding a little bit. You could hear, yes, you could say it's my tension and my tunings, but there is this element of explosion, natural saturation that this drum does that the acrylite does not do to the same degree. So it immediately works with a natural, organic saturation that you want in those soulful songs of Motown and and funk. And let's be honest, that sounded like Tom Petty to me, right? It sounded like a good rock, folky rock backbeat, you know. You played a little lighter. Let's see what that sounds like. Granted, I was using the butt end of the stick. Let's go a little lighter, something simple, right? Kind of sounds close to like a gunshot, a thick gunshot, you know. Makes me think of, let's see what this sounds like. What fill is that? The beginning of what song? Midnight Train to Georgia, right? Gladys Knight. Yeah. How does it do a little faster? What can I do? I'll just, same groove, just a little faster. Still sounds great. Let's do some rim shots with that speed. Sounds, you hear the crack, but it's a controlled crack. You don't hear the every single time, that ring that gets out of control, typically with a wood drum, a steel drum. The acrylite does that too. That ring will get out of control. You can hear the sound. It's kind of like it happens and then it's quickly controlled. So back to my story about that little gig, that was very important. I could lay into the rim and still have a controlled situation on my hands, you know? That ring never got out of control. Now, that sound, if you follow me, I'm going to force this drum into a James Brown environment. And you're going to see it's still going to sound great, the drum. Let's hope I sound okay. But the drum is still going to sound great. But it's not going to be that like Clyde Stubblefield vibe. Because he was using, from all of my research, a chrome over aluminum, or, yeah, I want to say a superphonic snare drum. I think that was his go-to drum. Anyway, let's check it out. So simple James Brown thing, right? Which would be... you hear how, I got carried away. You hear how the crack, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful crack and very controlled, but it doesn't have that Clyde Stubblefield signature shimmer, which is really conducive of that 70s funk, where everything still has this explosion, and you can kind of hear the metal, and that's really nice because you play off that when you're playing. You hear that ring just a little bit. We're not talking about the ring of the acrylite. We're talking about a ring that happens because of the chrome coating. Just enough that it energizes you when you're playing. When it's dry like this, the drum is extremely explosive, but the dryness creates, for my ear, something more like an anthem, where it's very, very steady and strong and stable, which is what Motown was kind of all about for me. Whereas when you play with the James Brown thing and you get that shimmer, that metallic shine to those rim shots, to me, it creates kind of a forward motion that really helped out James Brown. I think I'm going to call it quits there. I think that was a good enough, well-rounded example of what this drum can offer you. It is, I'm looking at it, I didn't mention, it is an 8-lug drum. So the daddy of all daddies, the Superphonic chrome over aluminum, the professional one, I believe is a 10-lug. Now that is another subject, actually, 10-lug and 8-lug. When you have 10 lugs, you can, one of the advantages is you can tighten the head more with 10 lugs than with 8. At the same time, that tightening also becomes kind of, I want to say, exponential in ring. So when you have 8 lugs, the ring going from one lug to another, in theory, doesn't continue as easily as if you had spacings of 10 lugs. So it kind of adds to the dampening, in my opinion. I didn't show you that. Last thing here, I didn't even have the dampener on. So you can see what this sounds like. Dampener's off. Subtle, but you hear it in the rim shot. So I'm going to take it off with the playing the rim shot. You can hear it. See that? So the dampener affects more of the rim shot than it does actually hitting in the center of the head. Also, you check out, go back to the James Brown thing, and you'll see there was a moment where I wasn't doing the rim shots, I was hitting in the center. I might have screamed out like, center, something like that. And the sound playing at that volume was very different than hitting the rim shot. Came together when you played the rim shot. Anyway, that's what I got for you today. Slingerland Model 140. Absolutely your sleeper model snare drum at, I want to say, half the price as an Acrolite, at least half. Totally worth it. If you're into what I'm into, funk and Motown, old school stuff, this sound is history. More news soon. Thanks for watching. Ciao.